Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will cover two important subjects. One is the second anniversary of the revolution, 19th of December 2018, and the effect and the good things which will follow the decision of the American president after the elapse of the 45 days given to the Congress. We did not object, so it is automatically Sudan's name is delisted from the American states sponsoring terrorism list. Definitely it will have some implications. We need to prepare ourselves and to qualify ourselves so that we can benefit the maximum from this delisting decision. I'm very happy and greatly honored to have with me and to host in this episode Dr. Zuhair Bashar. Zuhair Bashar is specialized in something very important to Sudan, which is the conflict resolution. Conflict resolution, automatically, and peace. He's a freelancer now. He's on a visit to Sudan, but he still is in the United Kingdom. So we're happy to have him in this episode with us in this important dialogue. Our friend, the second host, is Professor Makki Madani Shibli. He is known and he's an economist, and he presented a very important paper on the Congress, the Economic Congress of a few months ago, and he is now currently in Mamoun Bahiri Center, the director of Mamoun Bahiri Center. So welcome both of you, and you can have few words if you want to say something about the revolution. Actually, on the 19th of December, Sudan will celebrate the second anniversary of the gallant revolution, the peaceful revolution, which ousted a very strong, ruthless regime which stayed in power for 30 years as the maximum years of any system which ruled Sudan since before independence, the Turks, since the colonization. This is 30 years. It definitely had a very adverse effect on Sudan, and people will rejoice and will celebrate this anniversary, the second anniversary of the 19th of December revolution, which was on the 2018, which will have a national holiday, and it will involve rallies in the national capital and in different parts of Sudan. So we'll start by Professor.
Thank you very much
Professor
indeed.
Makki, let us have your words on this occasion, because you witnessed and you were here since that time, since 2018. Maybe Dr. Zuhair was not here on 2 years ago, but you can tell us.
Thank you very much indeed for hosting me during this momentous time for the Sudanese people, while we are celebrating the second anniversary of December 19 revolution. We are very happy to be here today, as everybody in Sudan is celebrating this occasion, which opened our way to join or to be integrated in the international community, and there are already signs of that which we are going to cover in this highly viewed program. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Dr. Zuhair, what can you say about the revolution? Because you were definitely following outside, and there was a very important contribution, and for the Sudanese people abroad in exile, whether in Europe or in America, they played a very important role in the ousting of the regime and the success of the December revolution. What can you say about this?
Thank you, Mr. Bakri. I'm really very happy to be here in this session, and I would like to thank you for inviting me, and I'm also pleased to be with Professor on my left here, and I would like to thank the audiences as well. Yes, the glorious revolution of the Sudanese, it was a turning point in the history of Sudan. it was contributed by all segments of the society, different parts, in terms of regions, in terms of population, in terms of all these, the Sudanese, all of them come together and make this very glorious revolution, and we are able to tackle a very deeply rooted regime which continues for 30 years. So I was very close to this, and as you said, we have been part of this because in the outside, as migrants and Sudanese outside Sudan, we are very much involved in mobilization, in contacting the international community, in getting in touch with the people here inside Sudan, and all this together has resulted to this very magnitude result, toppling the regime. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both of you, for this few good nice words. Okay, Professor Makki, before definitely will come down, the episode will come to your domain. We really want to hear from you something about the economic benefit which can we get from lifting Sudan's name from the sponsoring terrorism, countries sponsoring terrorism, and what are the priorities. But we'll come to this later. Still we are on the celebration of the why in your mind, why do you think the international community commended and they were happy and they sent very positive messages and signals to the revolution, to the success of the revolution, especially America, which expedited its speed on the till it reached the climax of the delisting Sudan from this blacklist. Why do you think the international community reacted positively to the success of the revolution?
Yes, this is primarily because this revolution rid them from a very hostile regime to the international community, which lasted for 3 decades. The international community was suffering from the policies of the previous regime, in the sense that since the start of the regime in 1989, the regime declared its hospitality and reception to all sorts of rebels and enemies to the international community, and they formed an organization which is named Islamic and Arab Conference, where they grouped the so-called the terrorists from all sorts of sources, be them from Islamic sources or from communist sources or different religions. Actually, some of them were even Christians. But what combined them was not religion, but what combined them was terrorism and enmity to the international community. This is why the international community continued to suffer from the policies of the previous regime, to the extent that, and that was made clearly and abundantly clear, that they hastened to support the revolution. As a matter of fact, even during the process of the revolution, you witness a lot of support to the movement of the youth and the young ladies who were leading the revolution for 6 months, and until it was triumphant on April 10th, 2019. So this reception, this the joy which have been expressed by the international community, led by the United States, was just a reflection to how much they were suffering from the policies of the previous regime.
That's very good explanation, actually. Okay, Dr. Zuhair, if we go on the other side, if you remember the peaceful demonstrations and rallies of the people for almost 1 year, and they were so adamant that the rally should be peaceful. The slogans of those who took to the street, the slogans were three important: freedom, peace, and justice. Now peace making is your domain, where you are working for a long time. And I'm sure you have been following the process which culminated actually on the 3rd of October in Juba by signing of the peace agreement, which will guide so far the rest of the transitional period. Alibit, two important factions did not join the peace process, which Abdulaziz Hilu and Abdel Wahid. So, what can you tell us about the peace and as one of the slogans of the revolution now is becoming realized?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, peace, the slogans of the revolution, freedom, peace, and justice, it looks like 3 pillars that complement each other.
Yeah.
You can't have peace or justice without freedom. So freedom can guarantee peace and justice. Now, it's very good that the government has put peace as a priority, and they work very hard for it. And now they have at least achieved a very big step towards peace. That is signing of the agreement in Juba, although it is incomplete because of these 2 factions. But I think it is a very, very important step forward. And peace is not just signing an agreement. Peace is a long, long process. It includes the agreement, it includes military arrangements, it includes reconciliation, it includes all these things. And all these things cannot come at one step. It needs to come gradually. But the most important thing is now all agree to a peaceful solution. That is the track.
Yeah.
And I think by having this in mind and in practice, that is the right way to go. And now I think the situation is quite prepared for peace, and the lifting of Sudan from this list of state sponsors of terrorism is one big step also forward, because peace needs a lot of resources. People talk a lot about peace can reduce the cost and the expenses caused for war, but at the same time, peace needs a lot of money to build and infrastructure and to rebuild relations and to expand on services, whether education, health, or infrastructure. So I think now we are in a good position, but still we have a lot of work to do.
A lot
Yes.
remains.
Yeah.
Professor Makki, before that, before delisting Sudan from this blacklist, President Obama paved the way, started the process by revoking some of the economic sanctions imposed on Sudan after this, imposed on 1997. And this, the listing was in 1993. Why, in your mind, according to your why the government of Sudan at that time did not make any use of this decision of Obama?
Yes.
Why do you think? Is it incomplete or what? Why?
Yes. To my mind, the government has always been on the receiving end of these decisions which were taken by the United States. So the decision taken in 2017 of, removing or lifting the sanctions was actually, or practically, for all practical reasons, was put on hold by the fact that the country was still in the list of sponsors of terrorism. So whoever wanted to take advantage of the lifting of the sanctions would immediately find him or herself falling on the hole, or the big hole, which is called that Sudan is listed in the countries sponsoring terrorism. So all investors, or financial intermediaries, or banks, or even at the regional level, not only international, even at the regional level, were quite concerned that they don't want to be violating the consequences of a country, say, having, say, economic or political ties with a country which is sponsoring terrorism, like Sudan at that time. So that's probably the main reason why, even after the overthrow of the previous regime, we are now all a year and a half since the government, this government took office or assumed office, but still we could not benefit from the fact that the previous decision, because we were still under constraint by the consequences of that list. So by this time, I think the way is paved towards, say, preparing ourselves, really preparing. Actually, we should have started preparing ourselves long time ago. But now the thing is coming to be a reality and acknowledged, and say all the world came to know about it. Then the serious work should start, and that the government should seriously, if they have not started yet, should seriously start to draw a very comprehensive and well-studied and well-prepared strategy leading the way of our reintegration into the international community. The absence of this strategy, I think, would really make us, say, not go to target the exact, say, objectives which we want to achieve by rejoining the international community. It is very important to know what we lost because of the conflict, and it is very important to assess and to estimate how much we need in order to put things in order and in order to build on the peace agreement which was signed or ratified on October 2nd, 2020.
That's very good. Okay, Dr. Zuhair, having heard Professor Makki talking about why Sudan did not benefit from that, and also, as he said, it's also being in the list. Also, being in the list involves some economic sanctions, and as he said, people or the big companies or will be definitely skeptical or afraid to go to a country under this list, this American list. But why, in your mind, why did this administration, Trump administration, took the decision to delist Sudan from their blacklist? Is it because of the peace, or what was the conflict, especially in Darfur, and the involvement of the ICC, International Criminal Court, in the crime committed in Darfur? I think it aggravated the situation, and it made it illogical to delist Sudan while its leaders under warrant of arrest by the ICC. So the conflict was a little bit complex. Can you give us just elaboration on why now Trump administration decided to delist Sudan, and it waited, and the Congress did not endorse it, but waited to the constitutional period 45 years. They could have shortened that by approving or endorsing it, but they waited till the 45 days without objection until now it became something true and real. Can you elaborate on this issue?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. And I do agree with Professor Makki on his elaboration. I just would like to add, of course, you remember when the regime was negotiating with the American administration, they have put down at least a list of 5 conditions to be met by the government before they can lift the sanctions. And I think after the revolution, the Americans were sending a kind of gesture to the Sudanese people and to the new government in Sudan, transitional government, by that decision made by the former American president. And after that, it took 1 year or more to lift the sanctions and to lift the name of the Sudan from this blacklist. Why? On my own opinion, I think the American administration would like to see genuineness and credibility from the side of the government. Because the transitional government started as a kind of coalition between military and civilians, and there was a kind of tensions at the beginning. So they would like to see that tensions draw away, and at the same time, they would like to see that the transitional government is building a good consensus, and this is on one side. On the other side, they don't want to delay this decision because they know how harmful to the economic and to the development in Sudan. So they don't want to delay it more to reach to the point that when they lift it, it will be useless. So I think this is the right time to make this decision because now they made their evaluation and that the transitional government is going on the right side. They stop sponsoring terrorism. They have allowed for some freedom in Sudan, freedom of prayers, freedom of movement, freedom of religion, all these things. And more than that, they are ready to make use of this decision if Sudan is lifted. And the third thing, and the most important thing, is the signing of the peace agreement, because this was one of the conditions. Unless there is a stop of violence in Darfur, reaching peace agreement, the Americans were saying they are not going to lift this. So by signing the agreement, that was a very good sign, and then the Americans have made their decision. With regard to why the Congress hasn't looked into the decision and ratify it, I think in America, the administration, whether the presidency or the Congress or the Senate, they all work together and they get in consultation. Even the president get in consultation with these institutions before he takes the decision. So when the decision is made by the president, it means that the Congress and the Senate already agree to it. So they didn't intervene. That's
why they waited, and they need more time to make sure that things are going to the direction of the American
the right direction, yes.
So they need any time more. If it is more than 45, they could have stayed more than 45 days. But they need time. They are not sure. That's where I want to jump to ask Professor Shibli about the statements of Prime Minister Dr. Abdullah Hamdouk when he said that the delisting of Sudan from this American list, the black list of America, will definitely lead to the reform in the economic reform and to attraction of investment of the multinational companies or the American companies. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes. Yes. Here I have a belief that you can take the horse to the river, but you cannot force it to drink.
Yes.
So the fact that now the environment is conducive and attractive to the international community, especially the investors, the banks, the financial intermediation, etc., is now wide open for them to come. However, they need some sort of attractive environment in Sudan. So I don't expect that automatically people will hasten or investors will hasten to come to Sudan before they are sure that if they come, this environment is receptive, this environment is stable, this environment is peaceful. So in order to attract or to encourage the horse to drink from the water, you need at least to purify the water, maybe put some, salts, maybe some flavoring, maybe some whistling, if you say, if you like. You whistle to the horse so that it can drink from the water and get satisfied. So this, I think, what I mean by that we need to prepare the appropriate environment for the investors to come to Sudan. This takes me to the responsibilities of the transitional authority, represented by its three levels of hierarchy, be them of course, the Supreme Council, the Executive Council, which is the cabinet, and the under formation, of course, the Legislative Council, which I hope it will be formed very soon, because this is also one of the attractions of the international community, that they need to know that there is a legal framework or apparatus which is working to help or to secure their interventions. Each one of those have a responsibility to play. At the same time, there is a responsibility which I would like to underscore here, because it is topical, it is a main issue, it is very important even to the United States, which was dictating the list of states sponsoring terrorism, which is the relationship between the military and the civilian partners in the traditional government. I would like to say a couple of words about this, maybe if you allow me.
Sure, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you see, concerning this file of getting integrated in the international community, to be fair, both sides played an important part in that. As for the military, side, they were active at the regional level. They have better relationship with the Arab Gulf, with the Gulf states, the Arab countries, better than the civilians, that's for sure. They also have good relationship with maybe up to the latest development with Ethiopia. And they were instrumental in moving the file with Israel. And by the way, besides the facts which were introduced by Zuhair, very importantly, that the Sudanese foreign policy is now balanced between the world, between the different parts of the world. And as you know, the peace in the Middle East is very important to the international community led by the Western countries. So when the Sudan took this measure of normalizing the relationship with Israel, that played an important part in the subsequent delisting of Sudan from the list of sponsoring terrorism. As for the civilians, of course, they were also active in other fields. They were active in, say, relationship with the United States. They have good relations, and they pave that way. They have good relations with European Union, which we give them credit for that. And they have good relationship with the multilateral organizations like the World Bank, like the IMF, in the sense that they are now applying the IMF-sponsored program for restructuring. So both of them play the role, and what is needed now is that they should have close coordination between others. They should have peace between each others, because to me, they are very complementary. The civilians cannot do with the military, and vice versa, the military cannot do without the civilians.
Yeah.
So they need to row the rule of the game, that if each one want to go the distance alone, then the challenges would be maximized, and this would bring us back to conflict, and that is not desirable for anybody in Sudan, and certainly not for the international community.
That's very interesting. Maybe I think Dr. Zuhair, you want to add something on this, because it involves some conflict, a minor conflict, which is a prerequisite for receiving, before we think of the reform of the economy and the coming of companies, as now it is in the media that 10 American companies are coming. It's not as easy as that. So it also involves some complications that we have to environment to make the environment, to edge the environment, and any conflict between the both components, which are complementary, as Professor Makki said, to each other. This is a conflict. Can you tell us about this and the effect of attraction of investment?
Thank you very much. Yes, I do agree with Professor Makki. The issue of reform is very vital and crucial in this moment. And now the ball is on our side, because in the past we were talking about the sanctions, and that Sudan is not lifted from this blacklist and this and that, and now Sudan, the sanctions are lifted, and we expect the international community to collaborate, expect investment to come in, but without a real preparation with regard to legal framework, military and security reform, in addition to infrastructure. The infrastructure is very vital. We cannot invite investment without having infrastructure. So the only port we have is Port Sudan.
Yeah.
So we need to prepare that gate to outside world. At the same time, we need to connect the rest of the Sudan, the different regions. I have been to Zaninje only 1 week ago, and I can see the huge production of vegetation, fruits, and even beans, the Egyptian beans produced there. But there is no way to bring it to
Transport.
Khartoum. Yeah, it is very cheap there, yeah, because this is the time of the
Harvest.
But unfortunately, there is no infrastructure. So infrastructure is needed so as to make use of this lifting of the sanctions. And I do agree with the professor. The transitional government also need to work in harmony, because we cannot talk about peace while the highest institution in the country
Not in peace.
is not in peace. How can? What are you sending? What kind of science you are sending to your own people on the ground and to the outside world? If you are conflicting, that means you are not capable to bring about peace or to implement this agreement. It will still be something on the papers.
Yeah.
So they need to reconcile, and they need to make benefit of each other, and their roles should be complementary roles. Each of them has a kind of advantage. Yeah. So let us bring that advantage. The military has advantage, as Professor Makki has some kind of advantage. There's good relations with some Arab countries. The Prime Minister have very good connections with the Westerns.
Yeah.
So why not they combine these and make it for the use of the whole country, Sudan? Because that is that's their role, to lead this transitional very peacefully and in a consensus way.
So you think that as a conflict expert,
Yeah.
without this reconciliation and genuine reconciliation between both partners of the ruling system now, the transitional system, we cannot benefit from anything. That's what you are.
Exactly.
I agree.
That
to
is
this.
the point. Yeah.
I agree to this.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Makki, Professor Makki Shibli, Dr. Zuhair mentioned a very important thing, which is concerning the infrastructure, concerning the peace building, concerning some people. They're thinking of American companies will come to rehabilitate the Jazeera scheme. They will come to. What are the priorities in your mind at this situation of Sudan? What do you think the priorities for inviting the international community to prop our economy and to help us in delivering the economy from an imminent collapse?
That is actually the crucial point which we should be all addressing at this point. Actually, should have been addressing it long time ago, since the start of the revolution, since this government took office in September 2019, is that we should draw a strategy, clear and comprehensive and appreciative of the stage the economy is at this moment. Up to this point, despite the signature of the peace agreement, we are in a conflict economy. And of course, the signs of that are quite evident in the market. Every person in the street feels that we are now suffering from the consequences of a conflict economy. And one of most obvious, say, characteristics of the conflict economy is the large existence of the shadow or the parallel economy. This makes most of the economy outside the control of the government.
Okay.
I would like to add that I would say up to 2/3 of the economy are now not under the control of the government, by the fact that it is a parallel economy which is running this. So we need to devise or to prepare a strategy which is appreciative of the stage where we are at the moment, where we want to be during the transitional period, and where we want to be after the transitional period. And this is not, of course, the concern of the transitional authority. I don't like the transitional authority. I don't advise them personally to get involved into activities of long-term nature beyond the transitional period, which ends in 2024. In January 2024 will be the last day of the transitional period. So we should focus on what we need to do during the transitional period. And if we do that, that in itself is quite sufficient that when the democratic rule comes to power, to take office in 2024, they would have the prerequisites, solid prerequisites to work on, and they themselves, they would decide what to do. Because if we prepare something for them, by the way, I have so many experiences from countries which pass this post-conflict situation. I would like to just to mention Ghana as an example. Each government comes to prepare a strategy, medium-term, long-term, 10-year plan. Then after the elections, another party comes. So what they do, they just throw what the other government did. That's why. So as to avoid the waste of resources, we should focus on what we are mandated to do, which is handling the or preparing ourselves to move from the conflict economy to the peace economy. And in that respect, I would like the government to be practical, not to jump. If you jump the queue, then you're going to fall down or you're going to commit, say, a violation. So the rule of the game is that be humble, aim at picking the low-hanging fruits. The high-hanging fruits, leave them for later. Somebody else will come to pick them. If they have the ladder, they have the means to go there. But now we don't have sufficient ladders to go to the high-hanging fruits, so we need to focus on the low-hanging fruit, and there are quite many. If this government consolidated, sustained peace during the 3 years to come, and that until the election were prepared and were successfully implemented, that is quite a good achievement for the government. To do that, we need first to know how much we need from the international community to sustain peace, which we have already achieved. And this, of course, needs expertise. You need to estimate what they call damage and needs assessment. You have to estimate what damages took place because of the conflict, and how much do you need to rectify what the conflict has precipitated in the economy. If we do that, then we will end up with an estimation of how much we need from the international community. I came to know, of course, maybe it is in the news now also, that France is preparing for a consultative group meeting in Paris in February 2021. And that, of course, involved all bilateral and multilateral donors to assist Sudan. If we go to them by hopes and by wishes, of course, that is not the rule of the game. We need to be precise, because the people who come to those meetings will be experts from their countries or from their institutions, and they know what post-conflict means, because they have been across this for so many countries. So we need to take advantage of every minute now to prepare ourselves as to how much we need from the international community and what are our priorities, so that when we receive pledges during February consultative group meeting hosted by France, we will be in a position to convince the donors that we know what we are doing and we know how we are going to spend them, and we have the expertise and we have the morale and the values. This is very important. We have to convince the countries, these donor countries, that the time of, say, corruption, the time of nepotism, and the time of partisan politics has gone, and now we are serious to do something in favor of Sudan and in favor of sustaining peace and in favor of preparing the country towards the democratic rule which everybody is looking forward to.
That's good. That is, I think, Dr. Dhur, from what we heard from Professor Makki, that the priorities should be on peace building. Also, peace building, when you come to a donor, if you ask him for rehabilitation of war-affected areas. IDPs, the first suffering of the IDPs, they will be more willing to give a helping hand more than indulge themselves on projects and which will take time. Now the professor is saying that the priority is the peace after the post-war or the peace after the peace. What will happen? He is advising the government and everybody that to concentrate on assistance of the international community on the peace building. This is part of your specialization. Can you elaborate on what is needed in the peace building process?
Thank you very much. Yes, if you want to build peace, there are two very important fundamental issues. One is justice, and the second one is fighting the corruption. So you remember for a very long time, the Americans and the international community, the Westerns, are talking about the huge violation of human rights, gross violation of human rights, atrocities, killing, and even ethnic cleansing in Darfur and the Nuba Mountains. There are millions of people still in the IDP camps, and some of them are in the outside countries as refugees. For example, in Chad, I have been to Chad twice, and there is about 400,000 Darfurians.
In Chad?
Yeah, they are living in camps in Chad, about 11 camps, and they are still there. So the issue of justice and the issue of fighting corruption looks very, very slow, very slow. And if you want to make peace, you cannot involve these people who are still in the camps without addressing the root causes of the issues that make them to go to the camps. So they want to see those who have been indicted by the international criminal courts to be prosecuted, either to be handled to the international criminal court or to find a way out. If that is something agreed between the transitional government and the ICC, it's okay, but they need to see justice being achieved. And now we have almost 15 months after the formation of the transitional government, and there is nothing can show that there is a sincere evidence of doing this justice. The other thing is the fighting of corruption. Unless you fight corruption, you cannot expect the international investors to come into the country. So you need to reform the act of the investment, and at the same time you need to show evidence that you genuinely fight the corruption. These two things, in the way or another, it feeds into the peace process, and it can help the peace process. To go further, peace needs people to reconcile with, whether communities at the grassroots level or between the political parties or the armed movements, and to be involved, to be absorbed in the military, and to be now as political parties, to be civilians, to go back to their normal life. All this cannot be achieved unless there is a reconciliation. How can you achieve reconciliation? Reconciliation needs also justice and needs some kind of compensation for the people who lost their loved ones, who lost their properties, who lost their lands. So all these issues are very, very important issues and need to be addressed very quickly. I think 15 months now is too much.
Nothing has been
nothing has been done on this side. So it needs to be addressed now, especially after the signing of the peace agreement. People need to see evidence that a progress is going to be made.
So it seems that from what you are saying, Dr. Zuhair, and I think Professor Makki Shibli will also tell us, it seems that the cost of peace and peace building and the consequences of sustaining peace, because peace process, if it is fragile, it can break at any time, which will be a catastrophe to the country. So, and I agree with Professor Shibli, I agree with you that the peace has to be sustained and maintained, and if the contribution comes, it should come to this peace building? Professor, can you elaborate on
That
this
is
and
very-
specify the needs, which are money, actually money,
Yes.
which will indirectly affect the economy
Yes.
positively?
Yes. Actually, this is the most important, say, job we need all of us to get involved in. Is that everybody will have to work on two fronts in this particular, say, issue. The first one is to consolidate what we have achieved in peace, and at the same time, in parallel, we try to do our level best to integrate or to involve those who have not yet joined peace. So this should go in parallel. But for those who have not joined, actually, if we do what we should do for those who have signed, that would be an encouragement in itself for them to join. Otherwise, they will know how much they would be missing if they still keep away.
Yeah.
From this, I think we need to really to benefit from international experiences. After all, we are not going to reinvent the wheel. The wheel, as you know, had been circulating for 7,000 years.
Yeah.
So wasting time to reinvent the wheel now is absurd. It doesn't make sense. When Europe came from the World War II in the 1940s, despite the might of Europe, they were in desperate need for support from the United States. And the United States hastened to give them 12 billion US dollars in the so-called Marshall Plan. And that was exactly to tackle the situation of post-conflict, which we are suffering from at the moment. And they were quite aware that if they do not preserve peace, as you rightly suggested, will resume again. And that would make problem for the whole world if countries start having conflict again. So the Marshall Plan, 12 billion US dollars, by the way, calculating it by today's prices, it is an equivalent of 100 billion US dollars. And that was enough to rebuild the whole of Europe, which we are seeing at the moment. The other example which I would like to quote is the neighboring countries who have been in conflict. And their experiences also, they had to resort to foreign support in order to supplement the meager resources, internal resources, not the meager, maybe the resources are not meager, they are quite abundant, but they have been dormant. So in order to utilize these resources, you need to jumpstart. You cannot start from zero and then you just find yourself high in the sky. You need to start gradually so as to take off. This taking off needs some support from the international community. So we need, as the so-called, now this is called the Transitional Period Partners Council, the newly formed council. And I would like to comment that yesterday they have reached an agreement that they confined the roles and the mandate of this council to resolution, solving problems and resolution, conflict resolution, which is good. So these guys who are now the new political incubator, of course, after the joining of the Sudan, the SFRC, the Sudanese Revolutionary Front, we need to be receptive to the international community to come and support us. And that, of course, will help us go over the problems of transition and likewise sustain peace in the preparation for election and democratic rule.
That's very good. Time went very fast, but my last question is to Dr. Zuhair about your expectations. In a minute, maybe also Dr. Makki, if we have time, on the new American administration of Biden, who attacked or severely attacked Trump for asking Sudan to pay this hundreds money for the people who were killed in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi bombing, as something as blackmailing. He's calling that he's blackmailing Sudan, and Sudan is a very poor country. So what do you expect of the new administration of Joe Biden, who will take office maybe after 1 month, will be the president the 46th President of America. Do you expect he will continue on the same policy than, what do you expect from Biden concerning Sudan?
I'll start with a friend of mine, an American. His name is Gresham. He used to be the U.S. envoy to Sudan during the Obama administration. When I sent him a message congratulating him for his party being winning the election and John Biden being winning the election, he replied to me, there is a huge, Joe Biden needs huge effort to make America normal again.
Normal again?
Yeah, to make America normal again. I think Joe Biden will come to normalize the American relations with the whole world. Not only with the world, but within the international institutions as well. Yeah. WHO, the issue of environment, the issue of the ICC. America has already left ICC. They have never been part of it, but also they have made a very aggressive position. What is his name? Trump has made very aggressive position towards the ICC, and he stopped collaborating with the prosecutor. So I think Joe Biden will be a good person, and he will make a good start. He will build on this decision. We are very lucky to have this decision from Trump while he's leaving. I think Joe Biden will find this decision pave the way for him to make good relations with Sudan, especially the big American companies now are looking to Sudan for huge investment. The only problem is our own internal issues. Yeah, need to be resolved.
You have to get well.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
In 1 minute, Professor, you can conclude because we are almost short of time. But Dr. Zuhair said very interesting words about Joe Biden, and we are happy that he's optimistic that Joe Biden will do better than Trump.
Yes, the way I look at it is that we are now part of the politics of economic peace in the Middle East, or peace in the Middle East, which was, started by President Trump. The peace in the Middle East is not a party politics for the Americans. It is an establishment politics. And the establishment oversees the foreign policies of the two parties, be it Republican or Democrats. So within this framework, I think if we are part of the peace in the Middle East, then there is no way that Biden is going to deviate from the framework which has been set up by Trump, by broadening the countries, normalizing relationship with Israel, and as they are suggesting, they are still moving and they are having very important countries to join in. So with this respect, I think this will continue. Even by proxy, Sudan will still benefit from the American, involvement in Sudan. And I think all what we know, I would like to reiterate, is that we have to put our own house in order so as to benefit from what is coming. Thank you.
That is very good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This is very rich, very encouraging words and genuine words about the situation in Sudan now after the delisting and on the celebration of the second anniversary. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last 1 hour. And this episode is important episode in which we hosted two important scholars, especially the Professor Makki Shibli in economics and Dr. Zuhair, who is in conflict, specialized in conflict. So it was a unique opportunity to the viewers to listen to both of you. Thank you, dear viewers, and hope to see you next week on a different issue. Bye.